Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood, to take in podcast content or an audiobook, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAtFive or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected. And now on to the intro episode, the trailer. Why I created hashtag FreshAirAtFive by Brian Carpenter. Early in the morning on April 16th, 2019, I went out for my routine walk around my neighborhood. As I got back from my walk, I tweeted out hashtag FreshAirAtFive for the very first time. The next day, I repeated the process and thus began Fresh Air at 5. I've been using this hashtag ever since and find that it is a way for me to reflect on my exercise, reflect on the podcasts that I listen to while walking, and be accountable to myself by posting on Twitter often my success in these areas. The routine of consistent exercise has been a challenge for me. Finding a thing that works and that will still work for a long time is important. Going to the gym to get some cardio and do weights doesn't thrill me. I was semi-successful at this over the past 2 years, but found that when life got stressful with work, it was too arduous to get out of the house to go to the gym early in the morning. It also cost me money, which hurt even more when I didn't go to the gym. We all know that exercise is important for our own self-care and wellness. It's not news. Having a workout partner can help, but I don't have one, and besides, I'll let them down. Having a home gym can help, but I don't have one of those either. It was in the summer of 2018 that I heard Sarah Johnson, that's at Sarah Johnson on Twitter, interview at Teachers on Fire podcast, episode 34, with host Tim Cavey at Tim Cavey. I was listening while I painted the bathroom of my house. I initially listened as I was a guest on episode 33 of this same podcast. I haven't stopped listening since. What I didn't expect listening to Sarah's talk was that the book that she was talking about would be a life-changing experience for me. Sarah Johnson, Jessica Johnson at Principal J, and Jessica Cabin at Jessica Cabin wrote a book together called Balance Like a Pirate, Going Beyond Work-Life Balance to Ignite Passion and Thrive as an Educator. Hashtag Balance Like a Pirate. I promptly ordered the book, which arrived in my mailbox, and then it landed on my shelf. Not a life-changing experience at this point. Then in November of 2018, I picked it up and started reading as I headed to a conference in Victoria, British Columbia. Getting started for me, reading a book is challenging as I'm not a quick reader and I find it hard to complete a book unless I have a goal. My goal was to read and reflect on each chapter on Twitter as with an image which was relevant and use their hashtag Balance Like a Pirate. As I continued to read slowly, the opportunity came for me to generate my professional growth plan as a teacher. This was an opportunity in our school district to go through a PGP process, which our administrator compared, with our administrator. This is in comparison to the sterile teacher evaluation process that was already in place. One of the goals that I set for myself was to improve in my work-life balance. I work hard as an educator and find that I can let work become all-consuming. But outside of my work at my school district, I enjoy presenting at conferences. I'm heavily involved in my church, and I am a husband of 20 years to my wife and father to 3 children, 16, 12, and 11 years of age. How to balance all these things and not lose your mind was why I continued to read hashtag Balance Like a Pirate. The importance of self-care and wellness is very important for educators. Actually, it's very important for everybody in any career. It's important that you be completely present at your work when you are working. Then when you come home, it's important to be completely present with your family. When you play, it's important to be completely present when you play. I knew that self-care was important, but didn't have time to do it at the level I should have been doing it. Going through life, I saw myself as kind of invincible, and that and that self-care can wait until a bit later. It's been over 5 or 6 years that I've seen the effects of not taking care of myself in minor ways, which puts stress on relationships, affects health, and reduces satisfaction. #BalanceLAP focuses attention on 4 quadrants of life as educators. Whether you are an educator or in a different professional career, these 4 areas are present. The 4 quadrants are professional, positional, personal, and passion, which is not in order of importance, of course, as each one is very important to your well-being. As I read through the book, I completed the little reflection assignments in each chapter and took notes in my Google Keep app and on my Rocketbook so that I could record them in my Google Drive as I read each chapter. I would tweet out my learning briefly, and I knew the importance of going through the book methodically and slowly as it would be of benefit to me. I don't care to read self-help books, and I don't believe that this is a self-help book, but a self-care book. Professionally, I am an educator and chemist. A chemist came about when I completed my Master's of Science in Chemistry in 1999 and started working at a small pharmaceutical company in Langley, British Columbia called Anermed Inc. Our small company was bought out and I was laid off, causing me to think about what I would do with the rest of my life. I always enjoyed working with people and teaching people things, which led me to pursue my Bachelor of Education through the Professional Development Program at Simon Fraser University. I completed that program in 2008 and was hired into the Abbotsford School District at the beginning of 2009. Professionally, I am an educator, and that means that I think about life through an educational lens almost all the time. When I go on vacation, I like to learn things so I can tell others about them, and the learning helps me stay engaged in the world around me. Professionally, I enjoy improving my craft. Professionally leads to positional. Positionally, I am a teacher at the Abbotsford Virtual School, teaching science and math, digital media, and literacy, and serve as the Library Learning Commons teacher. Positionally means that I am in a location and have a position in an organization. The personal quadrant is about me, relationships outside of work, including my wife and family, and the normal things of life. Self-care fits into this personal quadrant, and if you don't take care of yourself, it's difficult to take care of those around you and have healthy relationships. Stress management is critical in maintaining healthy relationships and your own health on its own. Exercise is one way to manage stress and have an outlet for working your body to deal with the effects of stress. As I'm getting older, I'm almost 50 years old next year. I need to consider being active and doing regular exercise. I tried running, but that didn't work for me. As I mentioned above, also, I tried working out at the gym, which lasted a while, but then ended. So I decided that I would start walking, as it's right where I am anytime I need to walk. Being regular in my walking is important. I recently acquired an Apple Watch, which helps me track my movement, exercise, and standing time each day. Closing the exercise ring requires me to exercise at an elevated heart rate for 30 minutes a day. Being a scientist, measuring and recording metrics is important to me. Seeing my progress in a graph or chart helps me stay focused on the task before me. Keeping the exercise streak going is motivational. The last of the 4 quadrants is passion. What do you do outside of the other 3 areas that makes you tick? What do you enjoy? For me, that's being in nature and fishing. So I try to fish it for the sake of being out in nature and not necessarily for catching fish, though that's a bonus. Okay, back to #FreshAirAtFive. While I walk in the morning, which is personal time for me, I choose to learn professionally by listening to podcasts with my headphones on. I teach digital literacy, and over the past 4 years, I'm growing in this area of understanding by attending and presenting at conferences, EdTech Team Summits, QBC, and our shared learning conference here in Abbotsford. So I enjoy using technology to create digital content from taking pictures and videos to creating videos for my family and at school. I teach digital literacy at my school and need to stay current with my learning. So I listen to podcasts about educational technology and teacher stories. I'll list the podcasts I listen to a bit later. All this to say that as I learn, reflection on what I hear is important, so that I do that a little bit on Twitter with hashtag FreshAirAtFive. So the point of all this is to say that hashtag FreshAirAtFive is my way of recording my walking and exercise, reflecting on my learning from podcasts, and seizing the day with exercise starting around 5 o'clock in the morning. When I miss my walk, I feel lethargic and blah. So I set my alarm for 4:40 and try to be on the sidewalk in my neighborhood or wherever that is by 5 o'clock in the morning. So I encourage you to find some way to get some exercise. Get your learning on with the valuable resources present in podcasts, my list at the end again, and to connect with those around you as you learn. As my one word for 2020 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen for the very first time as I've created a podcast experience for you to listen to. Subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes, and please give me a review on Apple Podcasts to get my voice out there further.